Hi, this is David Krayden. I'm standing on guard for you. Welcome to another episode of Stand on Guard with David Krayden. Maybe they're beginning to realize that Justin Trudeau is responsible for all this trouble. Well, Justin Trudeau was responsible for all his trouble this week again, and he's had a truckload of trouble in the last week since we last talked last week. There has been a lot of news. It's hard to keep up with the national news, to tell you the truth. Every time I wake up in the morning, and I get up every morning around 6 o'clock to review the news to see what I'm going to write about, what we're going to talk about for the week, for the day, and it's just so much happening. And it's there's never any such thing as a slow news cycle anymore, and it's been phenomenal. But we're not going to be disappointed because we're going to talk about Justin Trudeau and why he should be taking a permanent vacation. And why should he be taking a permanent vacation? Well, among 100 other reasons, he did it again with his Christmas vacation. We're going to be dealing with that very shortly, but it's incredible to me how he never learns, does the same mistakes over and over again. Remember that definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result? Well, Trudeau seems to think he can go on these luxury vacations, largely on the taxpayer dime, or at friends of people who are associated with the federal government or with the Trudeau Foundation, and somehow no one's going to notice. But we'll go in depth in that very shortly. I wanted to share something with you this morning. I'm very happy with this. I did a story. It should be up either today or tomorrow on the Post Millennial. And there's a fantastic documentary that's just been released. And I'll show you a clip of it in a minute. But it's by three brothers who have decided they've had enough of medically assisted death in Canada. Goes by this acronym MAID. So they very cleverly entitled their documentary Made in Canada. That's MAID in Canada. But, the problem with these acronyms is that we forget what this is really all about. And even when we're talking about, medically assisted death, it's medically assisted suicide. And what it really is euthanasia. That's what this really is. So I want to just play this clip. Fantastic trio. And I just talked to them this week. The second installment of their documentary debuts tomorrow. But just give a listen to this. There was a very highly reported story, I guess about 6 months ago now. And it wasn't it was a low-level functionary who recommended it, but the fact that a veteran was told he could solve his problems by having medically assisted suicide, that shocked a lot of Canadians. And it certainly, as a veteran myself, I certainly wouldn't want to go to Veterans Affairs and hear that that's my option. And that's my preferred option is to kill myself. Do you think that certainly bolstered the public knowledge of how dangerous this program is?
Oh, for sure. And I think, so we have an episode coming out this Friday. It's about that issue, and specifically Canada's Heroes, we call it. And it's featuring Christine Gauthier, who was the veteran that was injured during training in a military exercise. And she was one of the first 7 women in the combat arms artillery in the Canadian military. And basically, instead of giving her a wheelchair ramp, which she'd been fighting for 5 to 6 years, they had an outgoing call called and said, we can offer you MAID. So instead of an essential service for her to be getting in and out of her house, they said, we can kill you. And so that was a shocking moment, because she was literally in one of the gentlemen who's a veteran, Mark Meinke, has a trauma recovery podcast. He mentions in that episode, like, she was the literal poster girl for both the Canadian military in that unit, but also as a Paralympic world champion. She was a 5-time canoe world champion, paddle champion, and they offered to kill her.
To be suicidal and depressed, and having to fight that on top of everything else. To have someone, as you're battling this, trying to fight this off every day, and you have somebody just cannonly coming to tell you, you know, if you're really that fed up, and you really feel you can't go on anymore, you know, you have the right to die. Made it sound so easy, so candid, so just like that, it's done. It was incomprehensible for me.
If the heroes in our country are being offered MAID, there's something seriously wrong with Canada. And I think that is ultimately why, for myself, I really want this story to get out, and for Canadians to not just listen to this, but to actually watch it and actually follow it and actually talk about it, because we're talking about the soul of Canada. Like, do we want a country where, and it's a bit of Murphy's Law, right? If other countries are going to fight to prohibit death, but Canada is going to allow for it and broaden it, we're going to be a tourist destination for death. I mean, we're already announcing that at a Liberal government level, that this could be a tourist destination for death. It's in the language on the government's website that in some cases we will allow for foreigners to enter Canada to get medical assistance in dying. So we're already telling people, and I mean, you talk about, I traveled to Tanzania, India, these different countries, and there's always these travel advisories on the Canada government website. Don't travel to Tanzania. There could be an outbreak of Ebola. Don't travel to all these places. When are we going to put the thing on our own website for the government of Canada that says don't travel to Canada because we could kill you?
Yeah, exactly. We've become a tourist destination for suicide. That's what medically assisted death adds up to. And this is a horrible program to have in any country. But my God, what is it doing in Canada? This is a powerful documentary. I urge you to watch it. And it is fantastic. And you can look it up. It's called Made in Canada, M-A-I-D, small I, Made in Canada. Their second installment debuts tomorrow. It's fantastic material. I've got an article about it coming out in the Post Millennial today or tomorrow. I urge you to read that too. But, you know, I'm a veteran myself, but I never had, or have up till now anyway, I've never had to go to Veterans Affairs and ask for any entitlements, any compensation, any assistance, any help. But a lot of veterans have to do that. And can you imagine going to Veterans Affairs and getting a slap in the face like that? Some idiot suggesting that maybe you used to just consider dying or killing yourself or having a doctor assist you in doing that. Can you imagine getting that kind of reaction, especially if you've served your country in the capacity that some of these people have, where they have been injured in various ways, and it doesn't matter how, but they've been injured in the service of their country, and this is the reaction they get. Why don't you just kill yourself? This is absolutely outrageous, and it strikes me that we are definitely on a very dark path. And you know, as one of the brothers says in this, and I got to call them out here, these Canadian filmmakers, Andrew Daniel and Matthew Kuman, they have put a lot of work into this, a lot of research. They've done a lot of interviews, and they're going to have perhaps up to 7 installments on this, and I'm going to watch them all because this is a very important issue for all Canadians. Because when a country slides into euthanasia, it can slide into a lot of other totalitarian symptoms or totalitarian practices. And Canada is becoming more and more totalitarian / authoritarian, no matter how you want to look at it. You know, whether it's because parents cannot protest a drag queen story hour at an elementary school or library now in the city of Calgary. They can't do that. It's against the law. The parents, the protesters are going to be bundled up by the police and carted away. Or whether you're talking about what happened with the Emergencies Act in Canada under Justin Trudeau, where peaceful protesters were mown over by the police at Trudeau's bidding. A peaceful protest was shut down because they didn't like what the people were saying. We are becoming more authoritarian. And every totalitarian regime in the 20th century practiced euthanasia, most notably Nazi Germany. And it is a practice that leads to a complete disrespect for life. That's probably also why we have no abortion law in this country. We have unrestricted abortion on demand. Don't tell me these two issues are not connected. We have a culture of death in Canada. And this is what these guys are talking about. So I wanted to flag that first thing. Yeah, we are going to get on to Trudeau. We're going to get on to Trudeau because he has done so much this week to bring further disrepute upon his Liberal government. But I wanted to wander into this next area. Thank God Twitter is now owned by Elon Musk, and Elon Musk is going around and labeling all of the government/state-funded media as that. If they're getting money from the federal government, from their federal government, from the state to do journalism, he's just simply identifying that. He's not saying don't listen to them. He's not saying don't take them seriously. He's saying use your judgment. If they're getting money from the state, maybe they're influenced by that money. The problem in Canada, of course, is that CBC is getting $1.2 billion from the federal government. But a myriad of other legacy media are also being subsidized by the government. And all Musk did, of course, was identify CBC as state-funded. And it is. It is state-funded. But, of course, there was and this came about, actually, and I don't like to give politicians too much credit, but the leader of the opposition and the Conservative Party of Canada, Pierre Poilievre, brought this to Mr. Musk's attention in a letter, which I'm just looking at here. Okay. And Musk did identify this. Trudeau was outraged. Justin Trudeau was outraged, not only that Elon Musk was going to identify as a state operative, but that Pierre Poilievre would dare bring this to his attention. Just listen to this.
I think it says a lot about the Conservative Party of Canada that they're choosing to constantly attack independent media organizations, journalists who are working hard to keep Canadians informed and support our democracy. CBC Radio-Canada serves right across the country, delivers local news and local content in many regions of the country that, yes, has been challenged over the past years, but the idea of adding to that challenges and laying on by attacking this Canadian institution, attacking the culture and local content that is so important to so many Canadians, really indicates the values and the approach that Mr. Poilievre is putting forward. And I think it is telling that in order to attack this institution that is important for many, many Canadians, he runs to American billionaires, the tech giants that they continue to defend in committee and in their approach on our legislation to make tech giants pay their fair share. Conservatives are always there to defend them. So when they're trying to attack a foundational Canadian institution, the fact that he has to run to American billionaires for support to attack Canadians says a lot about Mr. Poilievre and his values.
Okay, and that says a lot about Mr. Trudeau and his inability to tell the truth or identify reality as it really is. I couldn't stomach any more of that. I'm glad it ended when it did, because I was almost about to just preempt it. It is so poisonous, so toxic. What Poilievre is doing, of course, has nothing to do with supporting big tech. Actually, people like Poilievre, conservatives, libertarians, are very leery of big tech because big tech is all woke. Big tech is what Elon Musk took over when he bought Twitter, because big tech was on the liberal side. So let's not go down this road, Trudeau. This is absolute nonsense. And what billionaires are you talking about? You're the one who visits the billionaires, and we're still getting to that one. You're the one who hobnobs with the elite and the billionaires. You're the one who doesn't understand ordinary Canadians. wouldn't know one if you met one because you don't want to meet them. These are people who have real jobs, which you've never had. But the point here is, this is, of course CBC is owned by the state. Of course it receives a massive amount of government money. Nobody's saying it should go out of business. Nobody's saying it shouldn't survive. And nobody's saying it doesn't occasionally do good journalism. And we're going to get to one of those stories in a minute. But it should be doing that on its own dime. If it's such a darn good station, why can't it survive without government money? I bet you it could if it really tried, because good media can survive with an audience and with some commercial input. And let's face it, the CBC, it's time to leave home. I wrote a paper about this years ago saying it's time for the CBC to leave home and stop living in its parents' bedroom, because that's what it's been doing for years. Grow up, get out in the real world. And that's all Poilievre is saying. So the funny thing is here, of course, the funny thing is that Trudeau says, it's not, CBC and Trudeau both complained about the Crown Corporation being labeled as a Crown Corporation, as a state-funded organization. So CBC pointed out it only received 69% of its funding from the government, and the other was from advertising, other sources, largely advertising. So, ha ha ha. Elon Musk came back and said, okay, you're less than 70% government funded. Actually, 69. So that was one of the funniest moments of the week. But this is going back and forth. Thank God someone like Elon Musk is running Twitter now, because we found out how Twitter is sharing its direct messages with intelligence agencies around the world, that it was regularly meeting, in the United States at least, with Democratic figures and officials and state officials in the FBI and the Justice Department, which are now completely owned by the Biden administration. He revealed that. Hasn't revealed yet what happened in Canada, but I bet you anything the Trudeau administration was in there. The Trudeau Liberals were in there in Twitter gathering information and telling them what to do, telling them what stories to put up and what stories to pull down. I've no doubt about that for a minute here. But that was certainly one of the big stories. Now we're going to get to my favorite of the week, because I wrote my own story about this. And that, of course, is Trudeau's luxury vacation in the Caribbean. He went to Jamaica and went to a place called Prospect. Yes. And this place, Prospect Estate. This is a favorite spot of the rich and famous over the years. Royalty has stayed there. Winston Churchill stayed there, probably on his own dime. But it turns out it's owned by a family named Green. And the Green family just happened to provide a very expensive $180,000 scholarship to the Trudeau Foundation a couple of years ago. So here's Justin Trudeau always saying he has nothing to do with the Trudeau Foundation. Thank you. That's my brother's project. That's named after my father. It's one of those things that I divested myself of a decade ago, as his acolytes and his promoters in the House of Commons, the Liberal House leader, is always saying this. Oh, he divested himself of that a decade ago. Well, somehow he likes to stay at the deluxe resorts of a family friend named Green, who is also a big donor to the Trudeau Foundation. So I think Trudeau does have some connection there. And this is quite funny, because we don't know exactly how much he paid. We know the cost of sending people down with Trudeau, largely security, cost $162,000. Staying in one of these units right on the Caribbean can cost up to $9,000 a night. So what do you suppose happened? I just want you to watch this clip here.
This is a villa that rents out commercially for as much as $9,000 per night. If any other Canadian had stayed there, that's what they would have to have paid, and they would have to pay for their own airfare, not having a private jet. This Prime Minister wants us to believe that these Trudeau Foundation donors offered him a $9,000 a night vacation for nothing. We know nothing is free, Mr. Speaker. This is about influence and power for the super rich. So why won't he answer? How much should he pay in accommodation per night at this luxurious villa?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
I guess, Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition struggles with the concept of friendship, Mr. Speaker. My father was godfather to one of their kids. Their father was godfather to one of my brothers. This is 50 years of friendship, Mr. Speaker. But, of course, we worked with the ethics commissioners to make sure everything, all the rules were followed. But if the Leader of the Opposition wants to talk about friendships, let's talk about the fact that he's running to his American billionaire tech giant friends to attack the local news that Canadians are relying on. Shame on him for going after Canadian content, Canadian news, Canadian things that people care about.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The only thing Canadian about the Prime Minister's vacation is the tax dollars forced to pay for it, Mr. Speaker. But he refuses to answer the question. He knows that there's these powerful interests are buying influence while making the Prime Minister more out of touch with the people on whom he is imposing his inflationary taxes and deficits. This is consistent with having already been found guilty for taking a $250,000 vacation from a billionaire that was seeking a government grant from him. If he's got nothing to hide, will he tell us, did he take these $9,000 a night villas for free?
Well, we never got an answer from Trudeau. I suspect the answer is it was obviously a gift from his donor friend, or it was a taxpayer gift. And we'll eventually we will find out about that. But it goes to show you the depth of the hypocrisy. Obviously, this has got nothing to do with Pierre Poilievre trying to shut down Canadian content. What is he talking about? I mean, the very fact that Pierre Poilievre brought up this issue illustrates he is concerned about Canadian content and the fact that Canadian taxpayers are once again being put through the ringer by Justin Trudeau and his vacations. Has there ever been a Justin Trudeau vacation that went right? Remember the Aga Khan? He was actually on the verge of being charged by the RCMP for fraud for that one, but they decided it wasn't in the public interest to do so. You remember the trip to India? The biggest embarrassment probably of Trudeau's tenure. You know, he's out there preening in the traditional Indian garb that ordinarily woke people like Trudeau would be saying is a cultural appropriation, but he's out there every day forcing his poor family, of course, to pose with him for the cameras. It was a nightmare of a trip, disaster of a trip. But every time he goes for a trip, there's ramifications and consequences that are negative for him, sometimes for Canada too, because he embarrasses not only himself but the whole country. Anyway, I want to get on to the next thing because we've got so much, and I don't want to bore you too much today. But there is so much happening right now, and of course the China scandal continues to widen. China's interference in our Canadian elections and how deep this goes. And they brought up last Friday, the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff, Katie Telford, was brought before the committee that's examining Chinese interference. And of course, I've never seen anybody sit longer in front of a committee and say absolutely nothing of importance. She's obviously very good at her job, which is to say nothing of importance. That's what those jobs are for. But absolutely interesting in terms of what she did say. I just want to show you this clip here because, once again, Member of Parliament Michael Cooper, Conservative member from Edmonton, once again was there with some tough questions, and I just want to show you this.
Madam Chair, Ms. Telford, through you, Madam Chair. 10 weeks before the 2021 election, Bob Soroya, the then Member of Parliament for Markham Unionville, received a cryptic and threatening text message from Beijing's Consul General in Toronto suggesting that he would no longer be a member of Parliament after the 2021 election. Were you, the Prime Minister, or anyone in the PMO briefed or otherwise have knowledge about that text message?
Madam Speaker, Madam Chair, I can't speak to this information, I can't speak to that information.
You
I'm sorry.
can't speak to the information because you don't know? Why can't you speak to this information?
No, and because, as I said before, as frustrating as it is for all of us, I can't get into confirming, let alone denying information and going beyond the bounds of the security heads who were here before me.
Well, I find that very, very interesting that you will not confirm whether you have knowledge of that text message.
What an articulate woman. She couldn't quite get her head around the question. Of course, she knew exactly what the question was about. She just didn't want to answer it because we know Trudeau knew all about this long before he ever admitted he knew about it. He knew about the Chinese interference. He knew that China was financially interfering. It was coercing members. He just revealed that was quite newsworthy on the spot there, that this member of Parliament, was a victim in this scheme. And this is something Trudeau will not discuss because now he's got this rapporteur, someone else who was a board member of the Trudeau Foundation and the former Governor General of Canada, David Johnston, an old friend of the Trudeau family. He's put this in Johnson's lap and and relinquished any responsibility for it. And this is very convenient, of course, but nobody's buying this. Of course, Trudeau knew all about this, and everything points back to Trudeau on this Chinese interference scandal, as it continues to do. So I find it quite interesting. And here's another exchange between Poilievre and Trudeau on this.
Well, it's definitely a family business for this Prime Minister, whether it was the We Charity paying his brother and mother money, the Prime Minister claiming to know nothing about it as he handed $500 million over to that organization, or the Trudeau Foundation, which got $140,000 from the dictatorship in Beijing for the specific purpose of influencing his decisions in politics. But now we know that his own brother was the one that negotiated and signed the deal to receive the money. Will the Prime Minister accept to call his brother to a parliamentary committee to answer questions about this?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
The Leader of the Opposition knows well that the Prime Minister has not been involved with that foundation for approximately a decade, that his fixation with the Prime Minister's family is well known for its partisan interests, and that he wishes to pursue those partisan interests, Mr. Speaker. But the Prime Minister and the government is not engaged with that foundation.
The Leader of the Opposition.
Well, if the Prime Minister has nothing to hide and no relationships whatsoever with the foundation, he'll have no problem inviting his brother to testify before a parliamentary committee under oath about the money that the foundation received for the specific purpose of influencing the Prime Minister.
Yeah, and we'll be waiting for hell to freeze over before we see Alexandre Trudeau, the Prime Minister's brother in question there, show up to any House of Commons committee and testify as to what he knew and when he knew it, or what Justin Trudeau knew and when he knew it. So the China scandal continues to widen, and Trudeau is beset right now with a series of problems and issues that aren't going away. Of course, we're in the middle of a federal strike right now. Public Service Alliance of Canada, 150,000 government workers have gone on strike. So much for the old sunny ways with Justin Trudeau and his government workers. And I don't know, he might try back to work legislation, which would be very unliberal of him, very illiberal. But who knows? It depends how bad things get. And of course, few Canadians really have much sympathy for these public service workers because they've got it pretty good. And they weren't really affected by COVID COVID-19, by the lockdowns, by the loss of work, by unemployment, the way a lot of average Canadians were. They went right through it working from home. So there's not a lot of sympathy for them. So Trudeau might actually get away with back to work legislation. And he will try anything right now to divert attention from the struggles, the problems, as he would say, the challenges that he's going through. And they are innumerable right now. And China is not going away. Every week we learn more about how the Prime Minister is immersed in this problem, not distanced from it. He's immersed in it. And this latest vacation scandal, I just find it incredible that this man never learns from past mistakes. That even if everything was above board and kosher and correct, it's the optics of this man going to an opulent resort for a week over Christmas, while so many Canadians are struggling to put food on the table because of inflation and having trouble heating their homes and driving their cars because of Trudeau's carbon tax. How can he have the audacity, the nerve, the gall to go to the Caribbean, lay in the sun for a week at $9,000 a night? Only Justin Trudeau can be that shallow, but he continues to be. And he continues to be that stupid when it comes to making decisions. And I will mention this vacation story was actually broken by Radio-Canada, which is the French branch of the CBC. So sometimes the CBC, despite getting their government money, will do an honest story. And when they do, I applaud them for it, because I'm not here to be a politician. I'm not here to say this party is the only party that ever says it right. I can tell you the Liberals rarely ever say it right. I can tell you that. And Trudeau almost never says it right. But if somebody does something in a good way and does something I have to applaud, I will applaud it. Anyway, it's been an exciting week. It's been so nice to meet with you again, to talk with you again. Keep watching Stand on Guard with David Krayden. This is an independent broadcast. I do promote the stories I do for other outlets, such as The Post Millennial, fantastic organization, doing stories on both sides of the border, Canada and the US, that are of importance, that are pertinent to you. And you need to read that publication. So I want to thank you so much for tuning in again. It's always a pleasure. For Stand on Guard, I'm David Krayden. All right, I hope you're enjoying this channel as much as I enjoy putting the material on here. This is not just about politics. I sing some of my favorite songs from the Great American Songbook. And you can also watch my latest show where we do some of the news you're not going to hear anywhere else. But please like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications. If you want to be part of this station, please be a subscriber. We want you.